You wonder why the room feels full yet you still feel unseen, why your prayers echo like whispers bouncing off the walls of heaven, why the friends who once stood close now feel distant. And the truth is shocking. You are not forgotten. You are being separated, because isolation in the spirit is not abandonment, but preparation. And God often pulls you away from the crowd when he is about to reveal a deeper calling. Just as Joseph was stripped from his family and thrown into a pit before he could ever reach Pharaoh's palace. Just as Moses was hidden 40 years in Midian before he could ever face Pharaoh. And just as Jesus himself withdrew often into the wilderness to pray, so too are you being drawn into a place that feels lonely but is actually sacred ground where God whispers secrets he cannot release in the noise of the crowd. And though the silence feels unbearable, heaven is speaking louder than you realize. Because Deuteronomy 31:6 reminds you he will never leave you nor forsake you, even when every human voice grows silent. And this is the hidden reason why your circle shrinks, why conversations dry up, why invitations fade away. Because not everyone can walk with you into the next dimension of your destiny. And some people had to fall away so the weight of their opinions would not drown out the sound of God's voice. For the enemy will whisper in your wilderness that you are forgotten, unloved, and unworthy. But the truth is that you are being set apart for an assignment too great to be carried with company. And the isolation you hate is the very environment God uses to sharpen your discernment. Because in the crowd you learn noise, but in the secret place you learn his voice. In community you grow gifts, but in solitude you grow roots, and unless your roots go deep in hidden soil, your fruit will never last in public light. So the season that feels like rejection is in fact God's redirection. And the people who walked away are proof that heaven is protecting you. Because if Judas had not left the table, Jesus would not have gone to the cross. And if the crowd had not turned on him, the resurrection would never have been revealed. So take heart in this season of isolation, because what feels like a stripping is actually a sanctifying. And God is cutting away distractions, draining away the noise, and clearing space in your spirit so that when he fills you, you will overflow with unshakable power. And you must understand that spiritual isolation is the classroom of destiny, where the Spirit teaches you things no mentor can, where the word opens like living fire, where your tears become prayers and your prayers become weapons, because the wilderness is not a punishment, but a proving ground. The silent nights are not empty, but saturated with angelic watch, and every lonely cry you release is caught by the one who bottles your tears. For Psalm 34:18 declares that he is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit, which means your isolation is the clearest evidence of his nearness, not his absence. And though you feel like you are walking alone, heaven has assigned angels to your steps, guarding the path no one else can walk, and soon you will see that the very wilderness where you felt abandoned was the same ground where God anointed you for battles ahead. And you will recognize that the silence was not void, but strategy. And the hidden reason you feel isolated is because you are chosen to carry a glory that demands privacy before exposure. For just as a seed must break in darkness before it blooms in light, so must your spirit be broken and reshaped in the quiet before it shines in public. And if you can endure this isolation without cursing it, you will emerge not just stronger, but unrecognizable, carrying an authority that only comes from wrestling with God in the hidden place. And now you must understand the shocking truth that what you call isolation is heaven's shield, because the enemy cannot sabotage what he cannot see. And if God allowed you to remain surrounded, your destiny would have been exposed to hands too weak to carry it and mouths too quick to corrupt it. So instead, he cloaks you in silence, hides you in obscurity, and lets you feel unseen so you can be preserved. Just like David tending sheep far from the battlefield until the appointed day when Samuel poured oil on his head. And just like Esther hidden as an orphan before she ever entered the palace, so too are you hidden because you are royal. And the isolation you despise is the covering that preserves your crown, for God never reveals glory before it is fully formed. And if he allowed the weight of your calling to rest on you prematurely, it would crush you. Which is why he isolates you long enough to strengthen your foundation. Because promotion without preparation is destruction, and isolation is the construction site of your spirit where God lays down steel beams of prayer, pillars of patience, and walls of unwavering faith. And though the enemy whispers that your silence means failure, the hidden truth is that silence is where heaven does its loudest building. And you will find that those midnight tears are watering the soil for a harvest you cannot yet see. That those unanswered prayers are chiseling your heart into the shape of endurance. That those empty rooms are sanctuaries where angels sharpen your sword, and that those quiet days are molding you into a vessel of fire that will not break when the storms rage. For Isaiah 49:2 declares he has hidden you in the shadow of his hand and made you like a polished arrow, which means you are not discarded. You are drawn back, stretched further, refined in secret, so that when God releases you, you will fly with accuracy. And you must see this season not as punishment, but as positioning, not as delay, but as divine preparation. Because isolation is the cocoon where butterflies are born, the tomb where resurrections are staged, and the desert where manna falls from heaven. And you may feel weak, but weakness is the altar where His strength is revealed, and you may feel forgotten. But forgetfulness is impossible for a God who numbers your hairs and writes your name on His palm. And soon you will look back and realize that what felt like loss was protection, that what felt like silence was strategy, and that what felt like loneliness was the very embrace of God Himself, because He is jealous over you, unwilling to let the voices of men drown out His calling, unwilling to let the applause of crowds distort your purpose, unwilling to let shallow friendships dilute your anointing. And so He cuts, He prunes, He strips, He isolates, not to wound you, but to heal you, not to leave you, but to lead you, not to punish you, but to prepare you. And the hidden reason you feel spiritually isolated is because you are standing at the edge of transformation. And God knows that if you can remain faithful in silence, He can trust you with sound. If you can remain steadfast in obscurity, He can trust you with visibility. And if you can carry His presence in private, He can trust you with influence in public. So let your tears fall, let the wilderness refine you, let the silence teach you. Because heaven has not abandoned you, it has promoted you to the inner chamber where only the chosen are taught the secrets of the kingdom. And when the door finally opens and the season of isolation ends, you will emerge carrying a fragrance of intimacy with God that cannot be counterfeited, an authority that cannot be argued with, and a peace that no storm can steal. And that will be the proof that your wilderness was not wasted. Your silence was not empty, and your isolation was never rejection, but the highest form of divine protection.